Twisted English Stories podcast. I'm your host, Frank Davis. This is Season 2, Episode 5. Today's story is called Monster Child, and it's based on two true stories. The first true story happened in 1930 in Sunnyside, California. Now, the second true story is more or less an Easter egg, and it's an Easter egg about a serial killer. Can you find it? If so, comment in the comment section below. Tell me who you think the serial killer is. Also, be sure to follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Your follow really helps the show. And tell a friend. All right, let's jump back in, or let's jump right in. Here we go, let's jump in. Monster Child, Sunnyside, 1930. "Hey, Marshall, get a load of that," Henderson said casually. Marshal Lang looked at his deputy and slowly shook his head. "This is no joke, Henderson. 2 fires in the same place are no coincidence." Marshal Bob Lang did not appreciate Henderson's sense of humor at the best of times. "The burning question," Henderson continued, "is what do all 4 fires have in common?" Damp, partially burnt bales of hay radiated out from the epicenter of the blaze at the back of the barn. At the front of the barn, near the wide-open door where Marshal Lang and Deputy Henderson now stood, the bales of hay were neatly stacked 4 high and were untouched by fire. Outside the barn, in the brightness of a beautiful November afternoon, police officers held a curious throng of onlookers at bay. Firefighters reeled in their hoses and stowed gear on fire trucks. Behind the first responders and onlookers, milk cows lazily grazed in a paddock. Yesterday, Lang had been called to investigate a fire at the same location. The day before that, he had been called to the Sunnyside Fuel Company. That fire could have been much worse. 4 days ago, a butcher shop had been the first in what Lang was sure was a string of arsons. "Henderson, do you remember that kid you were talking to at the butcher shop?" "Sure, smart little guy." "Isn't that him over there?" Marshal Lang nodded imperceptibly towards where a boy of perhaps 8 or 9 years old was staring in rapt concentration at the laboring firemen. "That's him. He's wearing the same striped shirt from the butcher shop fire. Let's go have a little chat with him." "Sounds like a hot idea, sir." "You're pushing it, Henderson." Here's a good time to remind you to follow us on YouTube or Spotify. Your support really helps the show, and be sure to tell a friend. And now back to the story. "Your boy Melvin here likes to play with fire. He said so himself." Marshal Lang spoke in a relaxed but straightforward manner. "He's just a boy. You can't believe everything he says," Jim Carr replied. They sat in a small, cramped interrogation room at the fire department headquarters. "Jim, may I call you Jim?" Lang asked politely. Jim Carr nodded in assent. "Thank you, Jim." Lang then turned to Henderson, where the latter leaned against the desk nearest the door. "Henderson, read back to us what Melvin said on the ride over." Henderson flipped through his small notebook. It was the sort of notebook all investigators carried. "I love to see the flames shoot up," Henderson read, attempting to imitate the boy's high, piping voice. He squinted to read his own writing. Marshal Lang was a good investigator, but he drove over every pothole and rut in the road. "Jim, have you heard Melvin say anything like that before?" Lang asked. "Hell, I don't pay him no never mind," Jim Carr replied. "Maybe that's the problem," Henderson offered from near the door. Jim Carr turned his head and side-eyed him. "Henderson, take Melvin outside and get him a pop." The last thing Lang wanted was for Carr to become angry. Also, it looked to Lang like Jim Carr was the sort of man who could use his hands. This room was no place for a violent altercation. Henderson led Melvin from the room. Carr slumped in his chair and cradled his head in his hands. A look of utter exhaustion overcame the man, and he slumped further where he sat. He murmured unintelligibly. "What's that?" Lang asked. "He wets the bed at night," Carr confided. "That's not unheard of," Lang said, remembering Flanders in 1917. "He may have killed the neighbor's dog, too," Carr added, head still in hands. "You don't say." At that moment, Henderson leaned into the room. "The bus to Juvenile Hall is here, all fired up and ready to go." "Jim, go and say goodbye to your boy," Lang said kindly. Jim Carr left the room. Lang looked at Henderson and said, "You're fired." Thank you for listening to this episode of the Twisted English Stories podcast. Do a little research, see if you can find the serial killer, and leave the comment in the comment sections below. Thanks again for your support. It really helps the show. Twisted English Stories. This is Frank Davis here at Twisted English Stories podcast headquarters. You can hear the street noise all around me. It's a busy day. I wanted to remind you that we are very appreciative of the support, and we appreciate you following us on YouTube and Spotify. If you would like to use the stories that we tell here, they can be found in the Twisted English Omnibus. This is available on Amazon. What I mean by use is use in your ESL classroom. That being the case, if you are using our material in the ESL classroom, DM me and I'd be happy to send you a PDF of free worksheets based on all of the stories that we tell here. And thank you so much for your support. Frank Davis out.